Hi, Doug.
Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
Well, I'm okay.
You're okay?
I was in bed earlier today.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot going on.
A lot going on. Yeah, I've got, my grandpa's in the hospital,
Right,
dementia.
yeah.
So
You're pregnant.
I'm pregnant.
And that's going. It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And putting this show together takes a lot.
It does.
So there's a lot of pressure on you right now, and then you have to come here, and we're going to turn the lights on and roll the cameras, and we have to be happy.
I got to put makeup on.
And we got to present ourselves as, like positive, shining.
Emotionally stable.
Emotionally stable. And that can be hard.
It can be hard. What about you, Doug?
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about that, right? Like my job, as the host of Go is I'm out there interacting with people in the community all the time, and it's like positive, upbeat. And some days, you don't get up feeling 100% chipper.
Camera ready,
100% chipper all the time. We all have stuff that is going on in our lives. We've had some rough news in my family very recently. And, the same day that I get the news, I have to, about a death in the family, I have to go and interview little kids that are figure skating. Mm-hmm. And they're perky and they're happy and they're excited that the camera's there. And I can't bring that with me. So it's an interesting challenge to have a job.
But don't you think everybody's kind of like that?
I think everybody has that.
Right, where they maybe aren't feeling some way, and then they go to a party like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm great. But inside, they're dying inside.
Well, and that's what I was thinking about, because today, of course, on the show, we're talking about, mental illness and how people deal with it and how you can get help and what the signs are and how to have a mentally healthy community.
Right.
But yeah, so that's all been going through my mind, and I'm thinking there are times that maybe, it would be nice to have someone that you could talk to about this and that would understand. And so it's great that we've got some of those resources coming on the show today.
Right.
So hopefully people that are having these sort of questions and wondering, am I, is this the normal amount of depression or am I teetering over into something where I need help, and to find out
something more chronic, right? Because having a loss in the family or having with me the illness in the family, those are just life events. But if it happens for like a longer period, then we have to get resources involved, right?
Right.
Like CMHA. So we've got Candace and Jayme of CMHA coming on the show, and we also have one of my favorite guests, Shannon Christensen of Mamas for Mamas, coming on, and just talking about making it okay to talk about these things, because there's been such a stigma around mental health for so many years. Campaigns like the GetLOUD campaign are allowing people to do just that, to talk about their struggles and not feel ashamed or embarrassed.
Okay, well, let's let the experts weigh in on this.
Aren't we the experts?
No, we just push the button and get the experts to talk.
That's right.
Now we're joined by Jayme and Candace from CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thank you. We're going to quickly play the GetLOUD campaign for everybody so they can see what we've done, then you guys can talk a little bit about that campaign.
Sure.
What would a mentally healthy community look like?
It would look like a place of well-being,
where everyone can realize their full potential,
where we can work productively
and cope with the normal stresses of life.
It would look like a community that's not afraid to talk.
A community that is prepared and educated.
A community that takes care of each other.
Imagine that we had mentally healthy workplaces.
Mentally healthy schools.
Mentally healthy neighborhoods.
Imagine.
Imagine. Imagine.
Imagine.
You can be part of the change.
Join us.
Take action.
Make a difference.
GetLOUD.
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 Get loud with your time.
GetLOUD with your voice.
GetLOUD with your support.
Just get loud.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time to make our community mentally healthy.
It's time to get loud. Join us in taking the pledge at getloudkelowna.com.
So great to get the whole community together to do something like that, because there's been such a stigma around mental health for so long.
That's for sure. When I first started with CMHA 5 years ago, I had to beg people to try and get me to get a meeting with people. And then when we were producing the video, people were so receptive, from the mayor to the police chief to the fire chief and school superintendent. And that was a real indicator to me that change has been happening.
What do you think is contributing to that change?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. And so, Clara Hughes and her Ride Across Canada, her support with the Bell Let's Talk campaign is something that I hear a lot from people, that they go, wow, Clara Hughes has really made such a big difference for this cause. But I think just as a society and as a community, we're getting better at talking about this stuff. It wasn't that long ago when somebody had a mental illness that we would, frankly, lock them up and throw away the key. And so that's in recent history. And I think there's a whole bunch of us in these up and coming generations who are saying, not again. That's not on our watch. We're not going to do this to one another. We're not going to do this to our community and to our family members. And so we need to learn how to treat one another more compassionately. But we need to also figure out how to have a conversation about this, because the stats are 1 in 5.
Yeah.
So, and there's 4 here. I'll just put up my hand and say,
I'll put up 2.
Yeah. I live with a diagnosis. My diagnosis is major depression recurrent, and with a little sprinkling of anxiety. But we're trying to get a conversation out there that shows people that it's okay to say those words. Mm-hmm. Every time I say that out loud, then people go, "You said it. You said it out loud."
Yeah. Right.
And then in other ways, we just try and give people a language, but give people that compassion and understanding for one another. Because there's the 1 in 5 who live with the illness, but there's the 4 in 5 who love the one. Mm-hmm. And that's every single year we see that 1 in 5. And because of stigma, less than half of the people who are ill will access the help that they need because of that stigma. And people are afraid to talk about this because maybe they'll be denied a promotion, or they're worried about will my boss start treating me differently, or will people start thinking I'm crazy, or and we don't want to be lumped in with those crazy people. Mm-hmm. Right. And so why would we affiliate ourselves in that way?
Because it seems to be like in a lot of in the past particularly, it seems to be like in a lot of people's minds, like mental illness equals crazy.
Yeah.
Rather than that being this whole spectrum of, like you say, if it's 1 in 5 people, it's obviously like varying degrees and varying like diagnoses, right?
Yeah. And Jayme, you talk in our peer support programs a lot about how mental health and mental illness is a spectrum.
Mm-hmm. It is a spectrum. We talk a lot about the spectrum being from green to red. So green being when somebody is well, and red being when somebody is in crisis. So there's different colors in between that as well. So there's looking at what can we do to stop ourselves from moving into a crisis. So what are some of those wellness tools that we can start to form? And that's one of the things that we do at CMHA within our Wellness Development Center and within peer support and the other programs that we offer, is what are some of those things that are going to keep me in a good, healthy mind space. So we're starting to focus more on mental health rather than the illness aspect of it.
Right, because what I always wonder is, how do you know when you've actually been diagnosed with something? Because sometimes there's environmental, or there's different, even in Okanagan, we are under a cloud cover all the time, so lots of people get the seasonal affect disorder, or somebody dies, or some big life event happens to you. How does that become a mental illness? Like, how does it go from just a life mm-hmm. occurrence to actually being something that's diagnosed?
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes that has to do with how we cope with things, right? The way that we're taught to cope with things. So, like
lying?
Candace, yeah, lying for sure.
Just kidding.
But like Candace mentioned earlier, we're starting to talk about it more. And I think when we live in a place where we don't talk about when things are starting to upset us, or when things are starting to become depressing or anxiety or anything like that, when we're not talking about it, it's going to build. It's going to get bigger. But we're starting to talk about it more. Right? Even with the GetLOUD campaign, it's about talking about it. It's about reaching out to one another.
Well, I also, depression, anxiety, like I get extreme anxiety. And lots of times, like I'll isolate and I'll just close off to people because I think, okay, I don't want to bother people with my problems mm-hmm. and stuff like that. So like, how do you encourage people to kind of get out of that feeling to just go shut the door and lock yourself in?
Well, what you just described is probably one of the most critical pieces, which is that awareness of this is what happens when I get anxious. And, and one of the great strategies that we teach through our wellness programs is something called WRAP, and coming up with a wellness recovery action plan, which helps to identify what are the things for me that are the warning things on the dashboard. How do I know when things are flashing yellow warning, before it sort of gets over to that red. And then if I know these things, so when I start to feel anxious, I isolate. So if you feel yourself isolating, then what's the plan? And sometimes that's ahead of time setting up supports and say, okay, if and when I text you this, can you make sure to call me within a few hours? Or can you get me out of the house even if it's in my jammies? Whatever, it's setting up some of those natural supports. Setting up, there's also a number of, there's apps or there's different programs. There's ways that, depending on your comfort level or just what's going to help you to get well the quickest or the most effectively, then, that plan's going to look different for different people. But that awareness of and the desire, to try and get through this. And I think, at CMHA we provide help, housing, and hope to the 1 in 5 and the 4 in 5 who experience mental illness, and then the people who love them. But that hope piece is actually one of the most important things that we do. So many people, and I include myself in that, for so long, because I did just struggle on my own, I didn't know that recovery was possible.
Right.
And recovery doesn't, for me, mean free of the illness, but what that means is learning how to be well.
And cope.
Right. And so that when the waves of life come, I don't drown.
Right.
When the waves of life come, I'm able to ride them, maybe even surf a little, like I just go, that was a tough go.
Yeah.
But and so we talk about bouncing back, and we talk about resiliency, and we talk about being able to live well within an illness. And for some people, they may find a way to recover and be free of illness symptoms, for a long, long time. The research shows, though, that if you have experienced illness once, you're more likely to experience illness again.
Right.
And so it's just important that we have a conversation like this, and it's not scary to say these words.
No.
Especially if you just, and that's why the Get Loud campaign is so important, so that people can hear some people say it, but also imagine what would a mentally healthy community look like? What would it look like if in our workplaces it was okay to say, whew, my depression's taken me for a ride today, and not have people freak out or go, what is with her?
Right.
Just to even have a conversation, go, oh, so what you doing? You're going to get some rest this weekend? You're going to take care of yourself? What's your plan?
Did you get into the mental health field because of your own struggles with depression?
Probably on a subconscious level, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, frankly, since I was 8 years old, I've known I wanted to save the world. At some point, I realized I couldn't quite save the world, but maybe I could be a helper, and maybe I could be effective in helping to change my community. Right. But it's such a privilege to work with Jayme and to just see on a day-to-day basis, so many of the participants in our programs or the people who call. Last year, we had over 18,000 calls on our front desk, and and to just see, from the first time somebody comes and does an intake interview with Jayme to where they're willing to tell their story, or they begin to take on leadership roles within as a peer mentor, or different opportunities like that.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So what's that line where they're like, okay, I need to call somebody, and how do they know to call you for help?
I think that's different for everyone. Everybody has kind of that different bottom. For some people, it's we've come up to the McNair unit and they've seen us there doing an information session, and they've decided that, okay, when I'm ready to leave here, this seems like something I might want to do, right? Just hearing for possibly the first time ever that recovery is possible. Recovery is kind of something that's not talked about as often as it should be, and I think it's starting to be, right? And I think hearing that word recovery is really inspiring for people, and I know it was really inspiring for me to hear that and to know that it was possible. For other people, it's hearing it from a family member that we love you and we support you and we want to see you well. And I've heard about this program through CMHA. Will you check it out? So it's different for everybody. Some people's bottoms look way different.
So do you can sort of approach CMHA yourself? You don't need like a doctor's referral or anything like that?
You can come in and check the place out. We have a meet and greet for the last Wednesday of every month at 11 o'clock where people will come and check the place out. And if they are interested and they think that's something that they're going to want, they can get a referral from a doctor or a psychiatrist, a professional in the community that knows them and knows their mental health history. And then that referral will come to me, and I'll give them a call and set up a time for a bit of an orientation, just a chance to get to know them, tell them a bit about the agency, and then they can start joining in on the programs after that, whether that's joining into an art class and doing their painting, getting some creativity going, or if it's joining peer support, or if it's just doing some fitness classes, whatever it is that's going to benefit them in their wellness journey.
Because I know over the years we've done a number of stories, with various programs over there, things like the painting program and stuff like that, and talking to the participants and finding out, like everybody's got their own issues and their own path, and it's interesting to see the range of people that come in and approach you and how they all have a different way into it.
Yeah. We also have started getting a lot of calls from employers. And so there's been changes recently over the last couple of years to the Workers' Compensation Act and that are now requiring employers to pay attention to the mental health of their employees. And so we have 1.5 FTEs, one and a half staff dedicated to just providing training and lunch and learns and workshops and seminars to workplaces and various groups. And so that's also a sign of progress, that there was the legislative change, but also that employers are responding. And it's been cool to hear some employers say, we're not doing this because, we're trying to beat WorkSafe or we're trying to, just like deal with whatever might have prompted it. But we believe this is the right thing. And we know that that mentally healthy employees are more productive and are more engaged and are more loyal and will help a business's bottom line. And so sometimes we get a call from an HR person and say, okay, we got to line this up. And sometimes it's from a family member, or, it could be a child or a parent saying, we need some help.
Right. Yeah, because, I guess, all of us go through, as you say, various emotional stages in our life. And it's just like wondering at what point is it something that you should be concerned about, or is that when other people start worrying about you, or like everybody?
So
right?
what we typically say is if you've been feeling lower than normal, maybe you're not coping as well, and it's been 2 weeks or more, and the normal things that would help you aren't necessarily working, and if it's not sort of a circumstantial thing, following a death, that would be understandable, that it would take some time. But if for 2 weeks, or more, you're low, and man, everything I'm trying just isn't working, that would be the first indicator to watch a little bit more and to maybe start to think about, should I be reaching out? Do I need to start kicking in to a new kind of plan or some new supports? And, the truth is, so we say 2 weeks, but the truth is, like, a lot of people wait because of either stigma or just, I'm just going to push through this. Or I'm just going to isolate myself and get it together before I reach out for help. And so often we don't hear from people until, the wheels are kind of coming off and they're in some form of crisis. And so...
Well, an issue that I've seen over the last few years with people who've kind of shared their stories with me is that them or their family members have actually gone for help. They've gone to the hospital, they've gone and tried to seek help and were either turned away or not taken seriously, and then they went home and ended up killing themselves. And so I'm just wondering, how do we avoid things like that? Because it seems like it's more common than it should be. It seems like we need more support systems in place so that's avoided.
So yes, there's no doubt about it. The system is underfunded, overwhelmed, and extremely difficult to navigate. So even our staff who are navigating, helping people to navigate the system full time go, okay, and there's been another change to this agency or within this structure or whatever. And so that is a full-time job, just understanding where the resources are. It's the last stat I heard was that mental illness accounted for 15% of the healthcare burden. But only receives 7% of the funding. And so when you think about that 8%, who's filling it in? Well, it's the Canadian Mental Health Association, it's some other organizations in town. But when we're just working so hard to piece together like a $5,000 grant application or a $10,000 grant application, or we start a program, but then we go, we don't have sustained funding. Like, let's just hope that the people we even get into this program, we can still serve them after 6 months or after a year. It's really challenging. And so, there's things we can do, and especially around election times, we need to be talking to people who are seeking office, and we need to ask them, where is mental health on their platform? What is their plan for mental health strategy? And what kind of priority funding would they give it, or how would they advocate? People don't want to see homeless people on Leon. We don't want to see that. But in order for us to address some of the most severe problems in our community, it has to start with us, and it has to start with us first of all around our attitudes toward mental illness, and even just caring for our own mental health. But then secondly, we have to be prepared to put our money where our mouth is. And the greatest answer that we can have to the brutal tragedies that hit our community when we lose people too soon to suicide, or people aren't getting the help. Misdiagnoses. Early intervention is the key. Right. So the earlier the intervention, the greater the outcome.
A lot of it, when it comes down to the misdiagnoses, I mean, that's a really difficult one. And advocacy, I think, plays a really big part in that. And that's part of what we do at CMHA. We have staff that works a lot with advocacy and pushing a little bit farther and asking those questions and getting those answers, I think, is really important.
So like opportunities to encourage the medical staff to be more aware of those kind of issues and be watching for those kind of diagnoses more? Is there like more education towards the professionals needed as well?
Absolutely. I think it's educational for professionals, for family members, because we don't know what we don't know. Right. So I think education all around is really important.
Why do you think it's so high, the 1 in 5 people being mentally unhealthy? Is there certain factors in our environment today? I mean, I see studies on things like people are spending so much time online and that they don't have that sense of community, or they're missing that human interaction. What kind of factors have you guys seen in contributing to?
It's a really good question. I don't think there's really anything in particular that could be the.
Is it Facebook?
Is it Facebook?
I think it's a little bit of
social
everything,
media.
right? But I think a lot of it is that we're more aware of it now. I think it's always been there, but all of a sudden it seems like it's a bigger problem because we're more aware of it.
Right.
Where maybe we weren't 20 years ago, right? It was a little bit more hidden. And it's not so hidden anymore. So it might seem like the stats are higher, but I don't think there's really any one thing that plays a part in it. There's so much.
And people that are worried about, in their jobs and careers where, they are worried that if they take time off or something that they're going to lose their jobs or things like that. Are there things in place for their security to know that they can go on some kind of a mental leave or without worrying?
So if somebody lost their job because of a mental illness, that would be a human rights violation. So our human rights do protect us in that. And there is also responsibilities on employers to make reasonable accommodations where possible. Right. So if somebody has a diagnosis of say they have an anxiety disorder or perhaps post-traumatic stress or something like that, and they're able to fulfill the duties of their job with just a few tweaks to maybe their work environment or maybe their hours or maybe whatever, if that's possible, then there is a duty to accommodate that employers are responsible to ensure and to provide.
Right, because I've seen a lot of cases where people will just hide their mental illness because they're of the fear of, either not getting a job or being fired or all those different things. So do you find that over the years it's become more of a acceptable in workplaces for people
in some, for sure, yeah.
And I think stigma is starting to die down in some areas, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that people are sharing a bit more about, I'm somebody that lives with anxiety and that's okay because I can still work and I can still be supportive, I can still be a family member and all these things. And I see it every day at CMHA with our participants that walk through the door and they're really shy and they're really hurt by the stigma that they've felt from society. And then all of a sudden they start to gain some confidence because they're in a supportive environment. They're around other people that live and breathe it every single day and that are learning to be okay with it and learning to figure out who they are. And then they start to access more of the peer support programs. And then eventually they become one of our amazing peer mentors that we have, and they start supporting other people. And it's a bit of a chain reaction.
Is there any particular success stories that you guys would want to share?
I think there's too many.
Yeah.
we have
anonymous, of course.
Yeah. No, we do. We have amazing ones of people that have come in and have lost everything, have not, are living on the streets, and then through coming into CMHA and getting engaged with our navigation programs in the wellness center, gaining some confidence, they've been able to get some housing, and then they've been able to go and get a job and just become successful and become confident and become okay with themselves.
People that maybe have a big life event or they go through a dark period of depression, you end up like losing things, you end up, some people go into debt, and some people will lose their houses or lose their jobs and stuff, and it kind of snowballs and becomes, and more things happen. And then years later, people could still be recovering from what happened years before. So what kind of, for financial support and things like that, when you really lose sight of all of that stuff when you're in it, how do people recover from that?
One step at a time, and with support, and so both our wellness center staff as well as our navigation staff, it's all about coming up with a plan, and that plan includes those social supports, but also identifying, okay, like what are, if you're not employed right now and you want to be employed, what are the things that are going to get you from here to there? And if being employed is an option, then that's going to help you with your finances. But in the meantime, what are some other programs that we can access, or people who can help come alongside of you to try and just chunk it off, and just tackle one piece at a time, and celebrate the small successes. And that's why it's. I love hearing the success stories, and I have the privilege of hearing them because I've got this proximity to the staff who are supporting people, but it's possible, and and that hope piece and that support piece is so critical for all of us. Man, think about going through some of the tough stuff in your life without a support around you.
Yeah, definitely. Now, speaking of the support systems, people who are, either family members or significant others to people with mental illness, what kinds of support systems do we have in place in the Okanagan for them?
Through the BC Schizophrenia Society, there is a program that's called Strengthening Families Together. And that's unfortunately really the only one that's out there right now for families, but it's a great program. It's 10 weeks. You cover a bunch of different topics about what is mental illness as well as what is mental health, how to communicate, how to talk with your loved ones, how to be supportive with your loved ones, but also how to take care of yourself as the main caregiver as well. Because the last thing we want is for the caregivers to burn out or to start to become unwell themselves, right? So it's about learning how to take care of yourself as well as how to take care and support your loved one the best way possible.
We also have on our staff, Melody is a family navigator. And so her role is to help families to navigate that system. So I keep using that word, but there really is no better one. What we can't promise is that the supports that a family might need are gonna be there. But if they are there, then Melody will help to connect people to the right ones. And every time she talks to a family, she also does a carer's assessment. And so she just checks in, and so if it was you, Doug, then she'd do a good check-in to find out how you are while she's there. And so this group is definitely one of them, and it's an incredible group. But her job is to just walk with, so that these parents are just, because it's overwhelming. I mean, especially if you're worried about your kid, how much you love your kid, right? And so just to ensure that they're finding their way through the system in the best way possible.
Well, I just worry. I mean, and you have 3 daughters. How's your mental health doing? I'm just saying, like in this day and age, like it scares me because I am a mom of a young son. He's 2 in January, but I see some of these things that are happening to kids. We thought, like in my generation, that it was bad in high school with bullying and things that we had to go through. And now I feel like we're at a stage with in high school and stuff where kids are experiencing and being exposed to things that, I mean, and never in a million years would think that they should have to be exposed to. And how people can cope with seeing their kids sad. Like even with a 2-year-old, I'm like seeing a kid like take Austin's toy or Austin wanting to play with him, and the kid's not like paying attention to him, and I'm like, pay attention to him. And like how am I going to cope as a parent when he's in high school and people are, you know, abusing him or, you know, shaming him on social media or things like that? Like, what do parents do?
That's a great question. And
what do you do, Doug?
What do I do?
Well, have you had any problems where like they've come to you saying they've been bullied or anything?
Not so much. I mean, it you know, girls in middle school particularly can be a pretty savage time, but you know,
or forever.
Yeah, I mean, each incident you have to try and take it by itself. You know, like what's that exact situation?
Yeah.
And try and talk with them, and you know, you're trying to like give them some kind of grounding and a safe place to start from, and then try and work out the dispute or whatever with the other people that are involved.
So,
work through the schools, work with the parents, work with the teachers.
Exactly, and work with, and so you talked about staying close,
yeah.
right? And listening to them and letting your daughters know that you're there.
Yeah.
And so the research shows that one of the best predictors for mental health, if we look at kids and youth growing up, is a healthy relationship and healthy attachment to at least one adult in their life. And so it doesn't need to be two, and that doesn't protect them from a rocky path or from a rocky experience, but it's one of the best predictors of mental health in the long term. And so, you know, holding the book "Hold On to Your Kids" by Gordon Neufeld it's one of the best out there. That relationship and that attachment that we have with our kids, but also just investing in other people's kids. You know, that it's so important that we invest in other kids, because if something goes off the rails with, you know, I'm thinking of one great, you know, family friends that we have, and I'm intentionally investing in their young son, because if something goes off the rails with that parent and son relationship, I hope he'll know he has me. He still has me, right?
It takes a village.
It absolutely takes a village.
But where's the line? Because nowadays, too, parents are so protective over, you know, I've seen parents like, oh, that person can't parent my son, or that person can't parent. I'm thinking, if my son's being a brat or he needs to be guided in a different way, like, you need other adults to come in and set him straight. Like, obviously, if they're hitting him or doing, like, verbally or physically assaulting him, that's not appropriate. But I feel like we're really taking that ability for even teachers to discipline kids and to help set them on the straight path and to support them.
You know, in some ways, the strategies that we use with adults are just the same as what we need to do with kids. And so believing that they're able is sort of a mantra, you know, for anybody who's recovered from codependency, or, you know, some of the old, like, now I'm showing my age on that stuff. But you know, believing the other person as able and holding them as able is one of the most important things that we can do as a parent, you know, is just believe you can do this. I'm here for you. I'm in your corner. You've got this. Let's talk about, so how are you feeling? How are you feeling going in? That we can practice it together. Like, you can be there and be their cheerleader. And that's one of the most important things we can do. One of the most damaging things that we can do is to do for them, is to rescue them.
I think kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. Right? I just went in and did a talk with the grade 6 class with a coworker and a few of our peer mentors. And it was amazing what they already knew about mental health and mental illness. I was shocked. They knew what stigma was. They knew how to be empathetic and kind to one another, and they knew how to be supportive, and they knew how to listen, and they were there, and they wanted to help each other. And I know when I was in grade 6, that wasn't the case, right? I didn't see any of that, right?
No.
There was a lot more lack of understanding and discrimination.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
My generation is a suck it up, you know, stop complaining kind of.
Exactly.
What about you with your, like, what was your generation like?
Way back then?
Way back in
Way back then?
Jurassic times.
Yeah, you just keep out of the way of the raptors and you're good.
Well, Doug was actually a bully, so his mom told me.
Oh.
Yeah. So we'll have to talk to his victims about how they coped.
We'll look them up. So if people are looking for more resources, more information, I know you guys have a great website.
We sure do, cmhakelowna.org.
Another topic, of course, is moms. I know moms go through a lot of hormonal changes and things going on. I know that's happening to me right now. I was in bed like an hour and a half before I got here. I was like, how am I ever going to get out of bed to do this? And so
that's every week.
That's true, but I'm pregnant. So Shannon Christensen of Mamas for Mamas is coming up next to join our conversation and just talk about some of the resources available to moms and just, talking about some real mom issues, because again, it's one of those things that for women, we've got hormones surging through our bodies.
All right, Shannon will be joining our conversation coming right up.
Perfect. Sorry, I had too much coffee.
What the heck?
And you might recognize this face. She's been on our show a few times now.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
But last time you were on the show, you were talking about, remember you doing the wine pairings?
That's right. Yeah, I was a food and wine pairing expert.
Yes.
At the same time as we were doing something else at the winery that day. We had a fun time.
It was great. But today, we're getting more serious.
Yeah.
So Shannon Christensen, she's part of Mamas for Mamas, an organization that is like sweeping Kelowna and the world. How many chapters now?
19 across Canada. We've got one in every province. So it's exciting. We're 1 year old on December 12th.
And you also, on the side...
I'm a registered clinical counselor, so my passion and focus is on mental wellness. And originally I started in the forensic system, working with youth at Youth Forensic Psychiatric Services. And so after finishing that, I just started to find my path in life, and I had started Mamas for Mamas last year, and it was really starting to take off. So I worked on that really hard, and now I get to work at the Elizabeth Fry Society, where I provide preventative counseling and support to girls in middle schools. And just encourage them to be mentally well right from the get-go, not to take whatever comes their way and internalize it, but rather to get their self-esteem and their self-worth from inside and develop a really strong social support network and just feel good about who they are, because they're awesome.
And how do you stay mentally healthy when you've got so much on the go and you're, around, like...
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And actually, it's something that... preparing to come here today, I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to be honest with you or not. But I think I will, because I've struggled with major depressive disorder for my whole life, and it's something that I was...
Join the club.
Yeah, no, it's one of those
I haven't
things.
found out about her yet, but we're in the club.
No,
so.
and that's really nice that we can be part of that together, because I've always felt stigmatized because of that. So I have been very shy about sharing that piece of my life. I'm afraid that I won't get the job I'm looking for because she's unstable, or I may not get the respect that I feel that I deserve as an executive director of a nonprofit because, she might need to go home and take a half day for mental wellness. Well, you know what? It's time to be loud. It's time to be proud about the fact that I have struggled with this, but I have overcome it. And I deal with it every day still. My number one support system is my husband, and I am not afraid to lean on him. And I've developed a really important network of people who are willing and able to support me as needed. Many of them are 5,500 mamas that we are connected with through the organization. I have an incredible amount of respect for these women who can come out as struggling, and when they present themselves as having an issue they're trying to deal with, the amount of compassion that they receive through the other mamas is it's beautiful. And it doesn't happen in the real world as often as it should. So I'm really proud that we've created a safe environment and a safe community where we can share resources. As you were speaking about before, it's incredibly difficult to navigate the mental health programs that are available out there, and there's amazing programs out there. We just don't know what they are. I'm still learning about what they are, and I've been in the field. So part of...
Do you know these ladies?
Yes, well, I mean, the Canadian Mental Health Association is a huge player in Kelowna in terms of keeping our community members well and connected to the resources that really make the difference. So housing is a really big thing. If individuals don't have the basic necessities of life, how can they focus on mental wellness? If they can't, get through the day, then where's the hope, right? So you are able to provide that hope. the Bridge is able to provide that hope. The Elizabeth Fry Society, the John Howard Society. I mean, there's agencies all over Kelowna that are providing these incredible resources. And what Mamas for Mamas does is we act as a safety net. Many moms are very afraid to reach out for help for fear of losing their children to the ministry, and that's just not the case. I know that the Ministry of Child and Family Development is incredibly supportive of family reunification and trying to keep families together.
Right.
So one of my big goals for Mamas for Mamas and for the programs that we develop is to allow moms to spend less time at their second or third job just trying to make ends meet by providing them with the necessities for free, because that's what we do. And allow them to build that healthy attachment with their parent, to spend the time at their soccer game or their hockey game that we've provided the equipment for through our other community agencies, so they can be physically fit, mentally fit, financially well, because they are not struggling to provide just the basic necessities. They're focusing on their kids.
Well, what I asked Karen Mason, she's with the Women's Shelter. She was on the show last week, and we were talking about the programs available. And we actually brought Mamas for Mamas up.
Oh, great.
In that. But one of the questions I had, which you guys might help too, is because Mamas for Mamas is mostly a Facebook group, and a lot of times on the Facebook group, on Facebook, you see people writing some really personal things about what they're struggling with, and maybe they're in abusive relationships, or if they're struggling with depression or maybe suicidal thoughts or things like that. And I just worry, how can we all work together, like with the group, but with organizations in Kelowna, so that when these people are, showing signs that they need help, that we can get them to the appropriate resource, like the Women's Shelter or CMHA.
Sure. Well, and that's part of the movement of the Get Loud campaign. So part of it, the pledge is very, very simple, that we're inviting people in Kelowna to, and our goal is that every citizen of Kelowna would have at least one opportunity to sign this pledge. And the pledge just says, if I'm seeing somebody struggling, I'll reach out to them. If I'm struggling, I'll reach out for help. And I promise to get loud. And so, what you're talking about, I mean, a Facebook group, there's already that point of connection. But when we notice those things, just responding, just noticing, just being compassionate with each other can sometimes be all that a person needs.
Because sometimes I'll see a post and I'll be like, should I message them privately and see if they're okay? And sometimes you have you don't want to infringe on their lives or anything, but you also want to make sure that they're okay. And so how can we be supportive?
Well, I think providing them with the resources, and instead of just saying, oh, I'm sorry you're struggling, you can say, oh, did you know Mamas for Mamas has an office within the community now where there's an actual resource center where you can go and get access to Canadian Mental Health Association information, where you can get information on going to the Society of Hope, who provides us with our office. So you can apply for housing. It takes a village, right? We need to allow the mamas to feel safe to reach out. We've implemented a new rule with the Facebook group that if you are in an abusive situation, you cannot and should not post it. Nothing is private. You put yourself at risk. You private message myself.
You put other moms at risk too, because say if you're in a situation and then a mom is like, well, can I come pick you up and take you out of that situation?
No, it's not safe, and what we need to do is rely on the experts for that. So the Women's Shelter and now Canada, which is a fantastic organization, the Elizabeth Fry Society, and when in danger, you call the police. You don't reach out on Facebook. I mean, I think it's a fantastic resource that grows by hundreds of people every week that want to look after each other and support each other, but there's a reason that people are trained in the community to be crisis responders. There's a fantastic crisis line that's available at all times. There's a kids' help phone that children can call when they're feeling afraid or they're unsure of where to turn. So I think being aware of what the resources are and not being afraid to say, hey, have you ever checked out the Women's Shelter? Or, if you're going to be homeless, have you ever checked out the Homeless Prevention Project through Now Canada? Have you checked out such and such and such? Or, hey, talk to Shannon. She's got a list of places that you can go and seek that help. So
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot because you decided to be honest when you came here today.
Yes, of course.
What does Shannon do when when you're going through, the depression? And because I was telling them earlier, when I'm in that, I just want to like lock my doors and shut my phone off and not talk to anybody.
Yeah. So it's funny because it's kind of like training for a marathon and then getting there that day and not being able to move your legs. You know, you set up your life with the intention of following through on everything you want to do, and you create these really lofty plans and
You got a
goals.
lot of pressure on you at all times
you know,
too,
we have a
like-
lot going on. So for me, you know, I have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week kind of thing going on where I'm always trying to make sure that I have the next thing planned and the next project going. And
are you keeping busy to avoid?
No, I stay really busy because I really enjoy it. But when it comes down to it, there was a couple weeks ago, I went home and I just had a nap. For me, sleep is one of the most important contributors to mental wellness. Eating well, exercising. It sounds very cliche, like those are the things that you do, but when you eat well, when you're giving your body what it needs, it will give back what it needs.
When you're depressed, you don't want to exercise. You want to eat like Dairy Queen and...
So for the most part, I focus really, really hard on reaching out to the people around me and letting them know that I'm in a place where I can't follow through on certain commitments so that I don't have that extra stress and anxiety. So I just say, you know what? I've got an incredible project manager who I can basically say, I need you to be Big Mama this week because I can't do it.
Yeah.
I need a break.
And your husband's very supportive.
And my husband, I mean, he's my rock. I met him when I was 18 and I was at the worst place mentally for myself. And he just said, like, I'm here for you. Wait, you know, I'll wait for you to feel ready to be, you know, to be part of whatever it is you want to be part of. We don't have to go out tonight. We don't have to do this. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, so sleep is at a minimum, and that for me is really important. So I am incredibly blessed to be, I sleep when I need to sleep, and we're connected and we're supportive, and I reach out to the mamas. I mean, I haven't shared my personal struggle with the world because I feel up until today that it was my business. But I need to get loud. If I'm going to ask the mamas to get loud, I need to be willing to do that as well.
Right. And it's good too, because when people like, you have it together and people assume, you know, when I went through one of my biggest depressive episodes, that was like back in 2007, I believe. When I went to the hospital because I just was like, I had hid it so long that I finally just, you know, crash. And then when you get to the hospital, because you seem together, they're like, oh, did you break a nail or did you know? That's maybe I perceived that, but that's how it felt going to get help was. That they're like, what could possibly be wrong with your life? And so having people like you, Shannon, who you seem like you've got it all together, and showing people that it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, and it can, and I think that people who have connections with the community have a responsibility, you know, to share their experiences, to allow other people to feel like they're not alone. We just gave away some really incredible fitness equipment this week, and I had probably 90% of the applicants who wrote in about the equipment say they really want to get rid of their depression and they want to work out. I can't believe how much mental wellness issues we have within the mama community. I'm sure it extends to the women community and the all over community as well. But I know for mamas in particular, we feel the need to be 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And that's my mom's term because
I like that.
That's, you know, when she struggled, when, you know, we were growing up, she didn't want to show us. And she wanted to be strong and she wanted to be everything for everyone. And I had the most respect for her when she finally said, I'm not 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and I need to take a step back from work and take some time off and just be a mom and just be good to myself. So the best thing you can do is to stop beating yourself up because you can't beat it or you can't shake it off. It's not a sprained ankle. It's something that needs real attention, long-term attention, and being good to yourself is something that as women we're taught is selfish. I'm not saying go for a spa day. I'm saying take care of yourself. Have a shower every day. That might seem like something that is
that's where
common
I'm missing
sense.
Out.
You know,
showering.
Focus on hygiene, right? Focus on maybe spend the day with your best friend and just go for a big long walk and just vent or cry or laugh.
Yeah.
You know, do something that makes you feel good because sometimes, you know, nothing makes you feel better, but you just have to keep trying. And let the people know around you that, you know, it's not about you right now. I need this for me. This isn't, I'm not against you. I'm not, you know, ignoring you, I'm struggling. I need you to respect that.
Yeah. You know, there's also, there is a free telecoaching program that's available through our BC division. It's called Bounce Back, and all you need is a physician's referral. And the stuff that you're talking about, Shannon, is exactly what's taught, some of those skills that make that happen, or what's taught through Bounce Back. So it's not cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's cognitive behavioral skills.
Yeah.
And so through 6 telecoaching calls, you're able to talk with a coach, and it's workbook based. And so just on what are some of those skills. And so it's actually a great complement to therapy, or to, you know, just other strategies that you're working on, because sometimes it's just that person, okay, so I'm going to try and take these thoughts that I'm noticing, and then maybe challenge my belief about that thought, and then that'll change my behavior.
Right.
And so the coach just helps you to work through some of the skills that help you to take apart those thoughts and really identify what are the helpful thoughts and what are the unhelpful thoughts, right?
What's the beast you're feeding? Like, what's that?
Yeah.
One question I have, though, is, like we were talking earlier with Doug, people that seem like they've got it all together, maybe were raised in an era where it's like the whole suck it up, you know, what is this whole mental health thing? This is just a new fad that's happening, and everyone's talking about their feelings, you know, like, you know, you get those older people that are like, I don't understand all this, you know.
We didn't have counseling in my day.
Yeah, look at how we turned out. And like they don't know how to cry or you know, even talk. Like a lot of people have parents or grandparents or things where they don't have that emotional connection where they can talk about their feelings and stuff without being like, suck it up. So those people, I think, are the people that I want to know how we can reach them, the ones that aren't allowing themselves to feel their feelings and deal with mental illness if they are struggling with it themselves because of pride or ego or things like that. How do we get through to them?
I think a lot of what we can do is model it, right?
Yeah.
Be that person that shows them that it's okay to talk about it, and it's not just a fad, right? That it is something that is important to talk about, and that it's not every single day that we're having this hard time, right? I'm somebody that lives with anxiety, right? That doesn't mean that I have anxiety every single day, or that it's every single day that I can't get out of bed. There are days when I can't get out of bed, but there's also days where I can get out of bed, and I can go weeks with being okay. Right? But I think it's important to talk about it and to model that I'm not my illness. Right?
Yeah.
I am not my illness, that I can have a life just like anybody else.
And having examples like Shannon, how important do you think that is? Because she's got, I mean, I feel bad because like I'm like overwhelmed sometimes just with doing this show. I'm like, it's a lot of work, and I'm thinking about, and then I look at you and I'm like, oh God, shut up, Lisa.
No comparison.
I just did because you're like, today I just unleashed like this to the world of Kelowna. Oh, and this resource is now available. Oh, and now we've got these suppliers, and I'm just like, how
it's a team. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to run a nonprofit. I most certainly don't do it by myself. I reach out to my team, and they are unbelievable. We are all volunteers at Mamas for Mamas. Not one of us is paid. And I've never had a more dedicated group of people, more than 15 of us connect. There's a core group of about 8 of us. The online compliance, our office manager, Jen, Sydney is our project manager, and when I need to take that step back, she's right in there. She's right in there anyway. She's my right-hand gal. But, it is so hard sometimes to tell yourself that it's okay to say no to something and it's okay to slow down.
That's my problem. I'm a yes man.
Yeah, but we have to.
Sure.
But the first part of what you're saying, it's so important, because I mean, you are being the change. Like when you say, okay, like this is my first time saying these words, and it's on TV, and and I'm going to say this, I bet you, and I'd love to hear, maybe you check in on the show at a future point. I bet you're going to get a bunch of messages from moms going, thank you for saying it.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying the words. So that's what it sounds like for somebody to say those words. And and so we need to just model this. And I mean, anytime we do presentations or whatever, like people are like, you said it. So that's like, I needed to hear it in order to know that. And then I look at you and I think, well, if she can say it, then I can say it too.
Yeah. Right.
And so it gets easier every single time. And I think I think using our voice in whatever platform or environment or opportunity that we have is so important. And some people are introverts, and some people are, have a smaller sphere of influence on the surface, but no less significant, than the head of a nonprofit that's, now taken over the
world.
The world.
Taking over the world. Take over my world.
but what would a mentally healthy Kelowna look like?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Okanagan.
A mentally healthy community.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would that look like? Mentally healthy schools, mentally healthy homes, mentally healthy workplaces, mentally healthy employers. And I mean it's I actually believe that if we were to talk, I'll just say for a minute, even for a moment in time, if I'm struggling, I'll talk to somebody. If I see somebody struggling, I'll talk to them. And I promise to use my voice in whatever way I'm comfortable. I believe our community could be different.
Well, thanks so much, ladies, for coming and sharing and opening up this conversation. I think it's so important for us to, get loud, like the campaign. Now, for people watching who maybe are struggling with depression or some kind of mental illness, or maybe don't even know that, they just are going through something, what advice would you have for them?
I would say to find someone to talk to. Reach out and talk to somebody that you trust, or just anybody that you know can help you or form a connection.
And say what?
Say, I need help. I think that's one of the things that we need to practice saying more in our society. It's such a scary thing to be vulnerable and to say those words of I need help, but it's probably one of the most important things that you can say.
And if you're looking for what resources there are in the community, or if you don't have that safe person in your life to talk to, call CMHA Kelowna. CMHA Kelowna. CMHAKelowna.org is our website, and we'd be happy to connect you with the resources that are available.
Okay. And what you?
Really just be the change you want to see in the world, as Gandhi would say, right? We need to make sure that we're being what we need to be for others to see that and feel comfortable doing it as well.
Being transparent. Thank you for being transparent.
Of course, I'm really glad that I felt comfortable enough to do that today, because it is something that I've hid for quite a long time, because I was afraid of not getting the right job or being turned away because of that, and it's unfortunate that today we still have to have those kind of fears. But I didn't want anything standing in my way or to allow anybody to have an excuse to say that I wasn't able or capable to do something, which did happen to me quite a lot in my youth. And it led me to the career path I'm in now, which is empowering youth, empowering mamas, and empowering people who are struggling to reach out and be the change they want to see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for coming.
Yeah.
And we're going to hit the streets right now and ask some people in Kelowna their thoughts on how mentally well we are here in Kelowna.
Hey everybody, it's Dave L for the DL Show, and today we're asking mental health issue questions on the street.
As far as I can see, we need a lot of help.
Okay,
That's my opinion.
And how do you think we can better support those with mental health issues?
Well, I think our medical people in our country are maybe can a little more help, put a little more money into it, be more serious about the problem.
Nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud.
Furniture for the DL Show provided by Aaron's Sales and Lease, a Canadian-owned company providing brand-name furniture, electronics, and appliances on easy monthly payments, servicing the entire Okanagan. Call 250-558-3580 for more information.